G'day and welcome to Kenty Blitz, your daily hit of NRL news. Kenty, we're one sleep away from Origin, and you feeling excited? Yeah, we're excited. So tomorrow we're having a special edition of Blitz whereby put any of your Ask Kentys below anything about Origin, and Kenty's going to answer it. Nothing is taboo, he said.
Well, it's going to be interesting. No, there probably will be a couple of things that
we can't talk about.
We need to get past the lawyers.
Yeah,
so
okay. That's another position we need to fill.
That's true.
If there's any lawyers out there, we need. Yeah.
Send in your applications. But look, I think, I'll talk tomorrow about a little bit of the mythology too of Origin and how great sports are always built on the myths of the past. The Masters, for example, English
Wimbledon,
soccer, Wimbledon, those sorts of things. And Origin is taking that sort of rarefied air, but not everything we know is actually right. So
yeah, great. We'll hold that for tomorrow.
We'll hold it tomorrow.
Big news coming out of Manly. Cracks have finally appeared or have been appearing and are getting bigger. Yeah,
it's a funny one. Look, the interesting thing there was the club, or Anthony Seibold has called in players, given them like a little 7-minute interview. What's wrong? Where do we need to go? What do we need to fix? Type thing. And he's also handed them all out. Little report cards, I suppose you want to call it, just critiques of what they've been doing in their games and what they need to improve on.
Do you think there'd be any A's in those reports or mainly C's and D's?
I don't think there'd be any A's. But the thing is, it hasn't been well received, Warren. That's the big issue at Manly. And big picture for Manly fans, it's clearly we know they're not performing well. Everybody all season has put it down to the Daly Cherry Evans issue. And I will say, I spoke to, probably 2 months ago, I reckon, maybe a little bit less than that, and said there was a few issues going on at Manly about certain things. And I've sort of, not only me, but a lot of people around the media have also heard the same things, and everybody sort of really sat on it and just sort of let it sort of play out, I suppose. The media at times can be too guilty of going too early on these sorts of things and trying almost like they're wishing it to be true. But Manly's form hasn't turned around. The performances are getting less and less inspiring, and over the weekend it all went kablooey with the loss against the Titans, to the point the club has actually reacted within itself. And Seibold, the coach, has called players in. He's tried to basically gauge what they think is wrong, and how things can be fixed. I don't know, obviously, what answers he's come up with. That's going to be kept in-house. And do
you think it's interesting? He had the meetings yesterday, and it came out straight away about the 7-minute meetings.
Yeah, and that's
a worry, right?
Well, whenever there's problems at a club, there's always leaks, isn't there? And the danger for Anthony Seibold in this instance is generally when there's leaks about the coaching performance, is because whoever's leaking wants you out of the club. Now, the good coaches can identify where it's come from. They fix the problem pretty quickly there. But if you can't figure out where it's coming from, or if it's just too broad, it's coming from too many places, it's very hard to fix up. He's got to figure out, I think, firstly, where it's coming from, but second, what their issue is. But it does sound like the players have been whinging for some time now, Warren. I can tell you that. I'm not going to sit here and call for Seibold's job or anything like that. I don't think that's up to us to do that.
Well, he's got a contract till the end of 2027. And a 6-month clause. If he's sacked before that, he gets paid out 6 months. Yeah,
and look, I think he should be given the opportunity to see it out and try and work his way back. We have this trend these days where the minute there's a little bit of a rumbling, everyone just wants to sack everybody, pay them out, move on, get the new coach in. Now, firstly, there's not really a new coach, I would say, who's just banging down the door saying, look, I'm just waiting for an opportunity. There's not anybody.
Well, let's talk about those. People talk about Willie Peters.
Well, Willie Peters has been there at Manly. He was an assistant coach there when Trent Barrett was there. Didn't end well for him, admittedly. But Willie Peters has gone on, and I think really gone on and shown his credentials. And he's just won the championship over in England, coaching Hull KR, who haven't won a trophy for many, many years.
Great story.
Yeah, turned that club right around. So he's shown what I really like about what Willie Peters has done is he didn't stick around and rely on friends and acquaintances and old teammates to just give him a job and sit him in an assistant's job and let him stay there and do that. He took the risk himself. He moved overseas. He took a head coaching job, and there was always a big difference between head coaching and assistant coaching. I spoke yesterday about Christian Wolf and why it was not such a surprise that he has been so well performed this season at the Dolphins even after their slow start. And it's because he also did the same thing. He went to England. He coached St Helens. He had success at St Helens, and he knew what it was like to go through those tough weeks where you lose a few games and you're wondering why you've lost them. Assistant coaches don't feel that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't have to front the media.
Well, they're all care, no responsibility.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And then I've multiple times you've heard of assistant coaches. Mate, why don't we get this bloke? Why don't we do this?
He's a coach in waiting, head coach in waiting.
Yeah, but then the minute they something doesn't work out right, so well, it's not my problem. That's up to you to fix now. They say to the head coach. It just you've got to be a head coach, and we have this trend now where assistant coaches. I think that's why we have so many failing coaches in the NRL. Every coach has to be pretty much an ex-NRL player, and they have to come through that assistant coach's job, and very few of them are actually going away and doing head coaching roles in other competitions. Christian Wolf came through the Queensland League. He coached at the highest level in the State Cup there, and then he went to England and did a job there. Willie Peters has done similar. He's gone over there. He's done whole KR. I think he'll get an NRL job. I think he's that good what he's doing.
Yeah,
there.
great.
Okay. That's where you got to give Sam Burgess applause as well. He's done a great job. He's gone over there to Warrington. He's done a really good job, and he's coaching the team. He's the boss. He's the guy that's making the make or break decisions. So Sam's another guy that will eventually, I think, if he continues to have success where he's at, or continues on this this path that he's on over there in England, he'll also be an assistant, a head coach here in Australia at some point. But the constant need for assistant coaches to be brought through, I think, is a problem. Seabold's got a few things to sort out there. The whinging that's coming from the players is that is too complicated, and there's just too much, physics up on the board and all the rest of it. Okay, they get confused with the message, and they just don't have the capacity to be truthful to learn what he's trying to teach them. Now, the problem for him is that was a similar complaint when he was at Brisbane.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit like what Ben Eichen said the other day about Michael Maguire. If he can't spot the problem, he's the problem. Now, Seabold is going to have to find something different to reach his players. They are clearly not responding. We've been blaming it on the Daly Cherry Evans situation, but they're not responding to what's going on. And we talked about the fact they played the Titans. They had the best two players, Cherry Evans and Tom Trbojevic, as well as Jake Trbojevic.
Yep.
Olaquatu, they're all available.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get past the Titans. And that's been the theme of Manly's year. So I would suggest that we need to look past Cherry Evans now. Manly need to go and sort that out. I'd be deeply concerned if I was Anthony Seabold after listening to what Tony Mestrov said.
Yes.
Which is, I've got the quote here. I wrote it down here just so we can get it all right. He says, at the moment, Seaves is safe at this point. So in the space of 9 words, 6 of them are little riders to basically say, hold this, watch this space because it might change. It is dead set. It is the modern equivalent, I suppose, of he has the full support of the board.
Yes.
So that's got to be a concern for Seabold. Mestrov should have been much stronger in support of his coach, unless he's going to sack him, which I can't imagine he's going to do. Yeah. But who knows in rugby league these days?
Well, the other two people they're talking about is, next man up is Ben Hornby at South, and Dean Young at St George, who I believe Newcastle are hot on if anything happens up there with Adam Bryan. However, what we're hearing out of Manly is next man up there is Michael Ennis, who's an old work colleague of yours.
Yeah, Mick. I can still hear his voice in my ears when I go to bed each night. He talks and talks and talks, Mick. No, look, Mick's a good fella. Okay, and
will he make a good head coach?
Well, from the point. See, Warren, this is the thing. All those guys you mentioned, Hornby, Young, Ennis, all know their footy. All have a very high footy IQ.
All played for New South Wales, maybe all of Australia.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. But also, I don't think that necessarily means you can coach either.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
But none of them have had that experience of going away and running a team.
Okay.
like a state cup team,
Mm-hmm.
like the Manly reserve grade team, who they got, the Blacktown Sea Eagles or whatever they are at the moment. Like they don't go away and do that. And there's a big difference comes in that space of being the assistant coach and the head coach. If you're a head coach and you just can't find for the life of you a hooker or a halfback, how do you coach around that? How do you figure out that problem? Now, the assistant coaches, they put a game plan together, a couple of drills together of training, and they put all the ideas, they throw up all the ideas, but the head coach has got to live with the decision. That's the trick.
Yeah, okay.
And that living with that decision brings pressure on the head coach that the assistants never feel. And that's where these other assistant coaches that we see progress into NRL coaching, that's where they come undone. That's the trick. That's the little part where they come undone, is that pressure of having to actually deliver and having to answer when they don't deliver. Have to get up in front of people, explain why they're not delivering. That's where Anthony Seibold's finding himself right now. He's trying to find out what's wrong with Manly. He's the one up front. Michael Ennis is not up there at the moment explaining what's wrong with Manly.
He's assistant coach there. Has been assistant coach at the Eels and Raiders before that.
Yeah, look, and he
appeals
knows
to
his
be the
footy.
next man up.
He knows his footy, and he does want to coach NRL. I know that. But yeah, look, I still think Seibold should be given the opportunity to try and coach his way out of this. Yeah, there are other avenues to him. He's just got to look at his approach to it and see if his approach is working, which it's clearly not at the moment. But that doesn't mean you throw the whole lot out. It just means you've got to tinker with the bits that aren't working. Identify what's not working, fix that, and move on. That's the trick. And that's, in many ways, that's the great skill of coaching. You look at Wayne Bennett, okay, who we all hold up as
Super coach.
the example of coaching. Wayne Bennett coached the Broncos in the 90s, and they were the most extroverted team in the competition. They were all attack. Okay, that's just the way they played. But when he got to St. George Illawarra in 2010, they were all about defence. Whole campaign. He won comps at both clubs, playing completely different styles of footy, because Bennett was smart enough to recognise the talents of his group,
playing to the strengths,
and he coached to their strengths. Coached to their strengths. And that's what Seibold. Too many coaches come into the game these days. I need a 5-year plan. I need to get the roster I need. No, you don't, mate. No coach goes into a club, very few anyway, go into a club where the club's been performing well. Generally, they've got the job because the coach has been sacked for doing a bad job. You know what I mean? That's why they've got the job.
Yeah.
So you're not going to walk into a group that's ready-made to win a comp, or even always ready-made to make the top 8. And you can't always sit there and say, well, I've got to wait 4 years or 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is for all these contracts we've currently got to expire so I can then get new players into the club. That's not what you want to be told as a fan.
Yeah.
That's not what you want to hear from your coach.
Yeah.
And that's, to be fair, I bet that wasn't what was said in the interview
to
get the job.
Yeah.
The job, the interview would have been all about, I can come in, I can turn this around, I can start making this competitive again.
Yeah.
And that's all you want to see out of your team sometimes. So I think that's where it starts now with Seibold. He's got to sit there and actually, okay, let's understand what the problem is. Let's fix the problem. So, and it's not just Daly Cherry Evans and what's happening there. There are broader problems across the club.
I see Bryce Cartwright, just in terms of coaching, Bryce Cartwright is now left the Eels by mutual consent, and Jason Riles there is a new coach. How do you think he's going so far? We're talking about
what
new
he's
coach.
doing.
Yeah,
I like what he's doing. And look, you can Parramatta season so far can be split into a couple of periods, but basically you split all those up into whether you've got Mitch Moses or not.
Like before Christ and after Christ,
yeah,
right?
A little bit like that. Yeah. But they started the season poorly. They couldn't score points for the life of them. But Mitch Moses, I said Mitch Pearce, Mitch Moses was not playing at the start of the season. He just wasn't there. Now he's back. Well, he was back until he injured himself again in Origin, but he was back, and Parramatta looked at a completely different side. And you can see the roots of what Jason Riles is trying to do there. Okay, he's changed them around.
Yeah,
I think he's trying to make them play far more consistently, and there's a lot more going on at Parramatta than there probably has been at other times in recent years. And I think the signs are good, but and I don't think he's panicking is the other part. I don't think after all those early losses, he panicked and said, okay, we're going to change things up and try to do things different. He basically said, look, this is what I think works, and this is what we're going to stick to. And they're on the slow improve, the Eels.
Yep. We, Kenty, you and I had a soda water earlier, and we poured over the idea of the ARL Commission and what's happening there, and both were very concerned at the latest news which has come out. And the ARL Commission has emailed the clubs yesterday and said that they will have control to be able to step in and make rulings on things that happen on the field.
Yeah, my concern about this, so what they're going to do is basically override the match review committee. So if the MRC comes out and fails to act on something or act severely enough on an incident within the game, they want, as a commission, the capacity to come in and say, well, we don't agree with that, so we're going to charge him with a grade 3 or whatever the charge is, which is above what the match review committee's done. I've spoken to a few clubs today about that, and they're all kind of wondering what's going on. They're wondering when they had the conversation, a couple of them, where the NRL said that they spoke to the clubs about it. They're wondering when that conversation was had. But my concern about that, Warren, I get they're trying to make decisions that are in sync with the values of the game. Couple of concerns though. One, I don't trust the commission to get it right. I don't think there's enough football nous on that commission. No,
there's only one guy, Wayne Pearce.
Wayne Pearce is the only guy that's really been around the game. But even that. Now, I know Wayne Pearce played the game at the highest level, was one of the all-time greats. He's in the Hall of Fame. Coached New South Wales, coached the Tigers. He did all that. Okay?
Great rock and roll band as well.
Yeah, Wayne Pearce and the Hitman. Yeah. So it is. But I've just got visions of him up on stage. No, but the problem with it is this. You've got to know footy to know footy kind of thing. Right. And just being a fan or a casual fan of they're not up to date, the commission, on the rules and the consistencies between charges and all the rest of it. Like the match review committee is supposed to be.
And what you always talk about, Kenty, is how there are the rules, but the coaches immediately look at ways to break those rules.
They'll do that, and they'll try and manipulate things there. But the way they're heading is, if the match review committee comes out and makes charges guy, you've got a grade 2 here, and someone on the commission says, well, I think we need to up that grade, where's their credentials in that area? Now, if it's not working at match review committee level, fix the match review committee.
Yeah.
Either fix the people on it or fix the system of it.
Yeah, good point.
That's what you fix. You don't come in as a committee that, I've said this before, people come into rugby league and they don't understand it's such a specialised area. And what it is they think because they've been fans their whole life, they've watched the game their whole life, that means they know the game. And as I've said to people before, I drank Coca-Cola my whole life, but I couldn't go in and run Coke. You know what I mean? Just because you like something and you're familiar with it doesn't mean you understand it enough to run. And part of the problem with rugby league is all those little nuances. Yeah. Those little things you need to understand, that this happens because of this. So now, as far as the match review committee goes, if it's not working, fix the committee. How can we trust them to get those decisions right if they're already in charge of the committee who's getting it wrong?
Yes. Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
It doesn't make sense. So I don't support it. I don't like the idea. Look, I do think there's a fair bit of upside. I also know there is a concern among the clubs. The NRL, part of their statement when they put out the justify it was that this will actually benefit clubs, they believe. The concern among some clubs is it'll benefit some clubs because they've got the ear of several commissioners. And they'll get in their ear. This guy needs to be charged, or this guy needs to have his charge brought down, because it's not consistent with what the commission wants. The commission has the ability then to override the match review committee, where they essentially are getting played themselves by friendly fire in the clubland. So I'm concerned about it. If we had a committee with Jack Gibson and Warren Ryan and those sorts of guys on the commission, I'd say they might get it right. But I just don't have faith in this current commission to override the match review committee.
Chris Choppy Close once said that, famously said, the ARL Commission has been arrogant and have their head up their arse. So I don't think it's that bad anymore. But actually, speaking of
after you've delivered that,
no, they're friends. We're friends of the show, the ARL Commission, mate. Speaking of Choppy Close, he issued a stern warning. Saying the Maroons need to lift for this state of origin or they're out of it.
Good on him. Look, he's come out and he's the one, he's cut through all the rubbish of this origin campaign so far, and he's basically said to Queensland, which I think they needed to hear, basically, if you don't realise the difference between club footy and origin footy and you don't step up to origin level, then we won't beat, his words, we won't beat New South Wales for another 100 years.
Awesome. Great quote.
And it's exactly what they needed.
Yeah.
The whole preparation from both clubs, but I think particularly Queensland, it's been very much a club preparation. Don't upset anyone. Don't offend anyone. Just come up and just be overbearingly boring in your whole preparation. Now, I'll cop that if come kick-off, it all just explodes in this burst of emotion. But what we saw in game one didn't happen. We saw the boring build-up, but we didn't see this burst of emotion and aggression and all the rest of it against New South Wales. They went out and they tried to finesse their way to victory, which is the one thing you can't do in Origin.
Yep.
Now, Choppy Close.
You like Choppy?
Yeah, he yes, I do.
Yep.
A lot.
Yep.
He's the soul of Origin.
Yeah, wow.
Wally Lewis might be the king, okay?
Yep.
Arthur Beach is the godfather of Origin. Choppy Close is the soul of Origin. He understands it. He gets it better than anybody.
For Queensland.
For Queensland, of course. But look, bear in mind, if New South Wales could sneak over and get a little cupful of whatever he's got, they'd take it.
Yep.
Because he understood that Origin is about doing whatever is necessary to win the game.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened in game one with Queensland. He said Tom Dearden was the only player that went above his capacity as a club player on the field that night.
Yeah, interesting.
And Queensland, look, and this is the story of Origin, go through man for man, they do not have the talent in that squad to beat the talent in the New South Wales squad in a all things being equal competition. But the greatness of Queensland is they didn't make things all equal. They found something extra.
Yep.
And they would go above and beyond what they did in Clubland. And that's why they've got this storied history of what they've done in Origin. And it hasn't been there this campaign. Now, I don't know what Billy was a revelation when he first came in as the Origin coach, Billy Slater. But he's certainly gone quiet in recent times. He went quiet last year when Michael Maguire hit him with the glass houses. That sort of put him on his back foot a little bit. I don't think he's really come all the way back from that.
Yeah.
And at the moment, everything we hear out of Billy is sort of standard fare, to be honest.
Okay.
But there's nothing unusual or new, or we're getting a lot of mixed messages out of this camp about the team that they're looking to put out in the field. And then this guy's, telling the truth. Is this guy right? It's an unusual team he's picked. It's a little bit at odds with what Queensland have been doing. There's some good parts to it. There's some parts to the team that they've picked that are a little bit hard to explain, I would say. But the one thing that is not there for debate is the fact that come game night, Queensland have just got to find that extra level. They've got to find something above and beyond just a club football game. And that's what Queensland do in Origin. That's their thing. That's what they do so well. That's why they are the dominant force in Origin.
Great quote from Choppy Close says, New South Wales have a really good team and are playing with the spirit that New South Wales doesn't display that often. Yeah. But this team has it.
And that's true.
Yeah.
See, New South Wales have copied the template from Queensland in that area.
Yeah.
They've seen what Queensland do and how Queensland buy in. And New South Wales have gone and very deliberately picked a squad to try and mimic that in many ways. They'll claim it's theirs and they own it. But,
of course.
But they're copying Queensland. But they've done that. Now, when you combine that with the superior roster, the superior roster as far as talent goes, that's going to make you hard to beat. So what does that do to Queensland? That says, guys, you guys have got to find another level again. And they haven't found it. And it's really concerning. The two games that have been played in Perth have been flogged in both of them. Struggled to score points in both of them. So Queensland have really got to find something in this game. And at the moment, unless they're just keeping it all on the boil and just the lid's on and they're just sitting there and they're just letting it boil up inside before they just finally explode game night, that's the only thing you can hope for.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so, because they're facing losing 4 games in a row for the first time since 96, 97.
Yeah. Yep.
Never lost 5 in a row.
Never lost 5 in a row, and not since Origin days. And even 4 in a row. You've got to go back nearly 30 years was to find the last time this happened to Queensland. And it's going to be devastating to them. And when you say never lost 5 in a row, if they lose this game, that means they come back to Sydney to try and stop that 5 in a row happening. Like, it could be reasonably dark times, because if Queensland don't get a result out of this game, where do they go next? That's the issue. Where do they go next? Because
I'll give you one more from Choppy. He said Queensland have to lose that mindset that the world stops when our good players are forced to retire. Yeah. It's a telling quote from how you're saying the spirit of Queensland Origin is really pulling into his team there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and he's challenging them.
Yep.
And the thing about Queensland is they have had those little lulls, but they have always been able to respond. Oh, you lost Alfie, you lost Wally, but then that new generation came through, the Lockies and the likes, and then Lockyer went, but then they had Cameron Smith and Thurston and those kinds of guys, and Inglis. So they've been, I know there's some crossover, but they've been able to sort of regenerate in that area. They can't go out there and play this as everybody criticised after the first game, like it was a glorified club game. It just cannot be played in that way.
Well, that's the last of Origin for today. Don't forget to leave your messages down the bottom under Ask Kenty. We will answer everything about Origin tomorrow. Let's get quickly onto reports that Wayne Bennett refused to go in the change rooms on the weekend after the lightning strike. You like that?
Yeah, well, they got called off. They were down 18-0 South, got called off. Funny thing about this, the way it's been covered, Warren, is everybody sort of cover the story from a point of view of, gee, it's unusual that he's done this, and they haven't really asked the why. Right? Why did he do it? So for those that don't know, the game, Souths were trailing 18-0 against Canterbury on the weekend. Lightning was over the field, so they called them off, and for 29 minutes they sat in the dressing room towards the end of the first half. Wayne Bennett didn't go down to the dressing room. He left the players sit there to sit and ponder by themselves, to be fair. And the players found that quite unusual. And after a while, when they realised he wasn't coming, they got up and they started to say all the usual things. Come on, guys, let's start having a go and all the rest of it. The beauty of what Wayne Bennett did, it's not an original ploy. Jack Gibson did that several times at Parramatta. Okay, Jack would not go into the dressing room. And Jack's response was always, and this would be at the background of what Wayne's thinking, Jack's response, why didn't you go in the dressing room today, Jack? And his response was, they got themselves in the situation, they can get themselves out. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. But what it did was it made the players take the responsibility on a little bit. Rather than just the typical, let's get the coach in, coach comes in, boys, you've got to start doing this, you've got to start doing this.
Starts knocking over chairs and blowing up.
By not going in, though, it creates this unusual situation. It's a new situation, which then makes it a far more real and learning situation for the players, because they sit there and they go, it's being lived for the first time. And so they sit there and go, well, hang on, where is he? What's he doing? Okay, well, he's not turning up. Well, who's going to take charge? And what are we going to say to each other?
It's really interesting.
And it's not the coach just telling them things they've heard before. Yeah. It's the players actually starting to say, well, we need to come up with something. We're going to do this. And Jack, that was Jack's ploy. What that shows about Bennett is this tremendous self-control he's got as a coach. Right. Yeah. He doesn't say something for the sake of saying it. He's always been that way as a man, Wayne. But he didn't bow this time. And I love the fact he did it. And he didn't try and explain it afterwards. So when people were asking Bennett about it, and he said, I just didn't feel like going down. I felt like they needed to sort it out themselves. People didn't understand that. Most people cover the game don't remember Jack Gibson doing that. But that was Jack's ploy. That was Jack's way of making the players self-accountable. And it often provoked a response out of the Parramatta team back then. Yeah, and Jack had all sorts of crazy ways. Jack walked in one day, the rubbing table was there. He picked up a chair, a little plastic chair, he put it on top of the rubbing table. The players were all sitting there. They played like dogs the first game, right? The first half. They played terrible. They're all just sitting there. And they're looking at him. Jack hasn't said a word. He's put the chair up on top of the rubbing table. He's walked around. He's climbed up onto the rubbing table. And he's walked over. He's sat down on the chair. And they're all sort of sitting in the dressing room looking up at him. And he sat there and he just let this silence just drag out. The players are thinking, what the hell's going on here?
Awesome.
And after a while he goes, as silly as I look up here, that's how silly you look out there.
Very good.
Then he got down and he walked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he also had that same self-control
Yeah.
that he didn't need to sell himself. Yeah, this is something, to go back to the start of the show, Anthony Seabold. You don't need to overload him with information all the time. Yeah, sometimes it is too much. Sometimes you've just got to say, you know what, guys, you did it. You get yourselves out of it. And that's what he did. South came back. Look, they didn't win the game, but they did play much better when they came back. Now, yes, they needed the break. The whole thing wasn't that they needed the break from a reset point of view as far as the coaching and all that sort of goes. They self-fixed themselves.
Yeah.
And that was a genius stroke from Bennett. That should be that
should
belongs
keep
with the Bennett legend.
And it'll keep them instead for the rest of the season, right?
Well, hopefully it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it does. But look, it's not something you could do every week. But he just picked the right time to do it. He nearly got the result he wanted. They didn't win the game. He nearly got the result he needed. If they weren't so busted with injuries and whatnot, they could have got there. But anyway, I just thought it was really good coaching from Wayne, and one that should go in that in that growing book of Wayne Bennett myths and legends.
The Master Tales. Good stuff. All right, that's it from us. One more sleep. Write your things down at the bottom in Ask Kenty, and we'll do our best to answer them all tomorrow. Nothing is taboo, apparently. See you then.